NC State Wolfpack fans, Duke Blue Devil fans, welcome to our special Locked On crossover episode here on Friday. NC State will be traveling over to Durham, not Raleigh-Durham, but just Durham separately on Saturday, 4 p.m. kickoff in Wallace-Wade Stadium. I'm joined here by the host of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson, and of course my co-pilot, Kenton Gibbs, former Wolfpack defensive tackle. Fellas, we got a game to break down. JJ, the last couple times we've seen you on here, it has resulted in a Duke win. NC State's looking for some get back. Duke might be looking for some get right, a 1-2 record. Kent and I will start here in the captain's chair asking JJ all about the Duke Blue Devils through 3 weeks of the season. I guess I've already kind of preempted it, so I'll start there. JJ, Duke is 1-2, a couple tough losses, Illinois at home, and then last week on the road down in New Orleans, a close loss, the Tulane Green Wave. What's been the vibe around Duke? Are they meeting expectations? Have they kind of let some games slip away? What's the energy you're reading right now?
Yeah, first time this year that we're getting to do one of these Locked On crossovers, fellas, and I certainly have enjoyed all the chats that we've had before, even going back to an unfortunate Elite Eight matchup that didn't go in Duke's favor. My everydayers have not forgot about that, what you guys had to say after that one. So let's talk a little football here. You're right, Grayson. I am an eternal optimist in nature, and the fact that I'm talking about a 1-2 football team really sours me, and I just don't want this to be the case. And I think a lot of Duke fans are in the same boat. You go out, you spend big. Duke is talked about as the big spenders in the sport when you bring in Darian Mensah to play quarterback. And through the first couple of games here, the offense has been totally fine for Duke. It's a defense that has let them down. So now that ACC play has arrived, really got to step up. Hope they can protect home field on Saturday in this game against NC State, and the defense can finally start to make some stops, although I know it's going to be difficult against that NC State offense that I know we'll get into a little bit later.
Now, everybody's talking about the fact that, hey, this is going to be the toughest defense that NC State has faced so far. And I think that we can all agree to that. That's fair. That's fine. But what are your thoughts on the opposite side of that coin, where people are saying this is potentially the best passing game that Duke has faced so far this season? With all that Altmaier brings, his receivers, with all due respect, they're probably going to be learning enterprise rental car in a few months, right? You look at Tulane, same thing with Retzlaff. His legs were the biggest portion of the deal because he's only been their quarterback for 14 days before fall camp started. He got there July 21st and had to hit the ground running from there. So what are your thoughts on this potentially being the toughest passing game that Duke faces? Would you agree to that? Would you say, nah, I'd give it to somebody else? Where would you land there?
I think you're right on the money there, Kenton. When you look at what C.J. Bailey's been able to do as NC State's quarterback this season, picking up what he left off last year, I think about the number of weapons that NC State's got offensively, kind of spreading the rock around. I'm a little worried about what Duke's been able to do in that back end of the secondary, and in some ways, you felt the most confident about Duke's secondary defensively going into the year with Chandler Rivers coming back. He's got All-American buzz. And nobody's really throwing it his way, but it's been a lot of other younger guys that are having to step up. On the back end of the Duke defense, they're still waiting for Terry Moore to return from an ACL injury that he sustained in the bowl game this past season. So, yeah, definitely, guys. Going up against C.J. Bailey, this team, this defense, the secondary for Duke has got to be ready to put in some work.
Now, you mentioned Darian Mensah, and that was a storyline specifically for Duke, having actually the highest paid quarterback in college football, which, with all due respect, JJ, would have never expected to hear that in Durham, North Carolina. But I want to talk to you. I mean, it's early, of course, only 3 games played, but with Darian Mensah being paid, what was it, $8 million over 2 years? Do you feel like they're getting what they paid for at this point in the year?
I think so. I think it hasn't resulted in a 3-0 record to start the year. That I certainly would have loved. But I think that Darian Mensah, through these first 12 quarters of football that we've got to watch him play, has certainly lived up to the billing. Guys, I watched this guy out there on the field, and some of the throws he makes, it's unreal. I'm like, how in the world was he able to do that, given his frame, the arm talent that he's got? It's been every game this season, he's thrown to at least 8 or more wide receivers. So it's not like this passing game offense has been one target. He is really spreading the love, spreading the rock, which has been really fun to see. I think back to some Duke football teams over the past couple of years. I could go 4 or 5 years back and how run heavy they were with somebody like Mateo Durant And then Riley Leonard able to use his legs a whole lot more, wasn't necessarily throwing the ball as much. The accuracy issues that Malik Murphy had a season ago did turn in a 9-3 regular season for Duke, but still more meat on the bone that you would have liked to see. You're not getting that in Darian Mensah. He is a dynamic playmaker for this team. Had a couple of fumble issues in that Illinois game that you'd love to see cleaned up. But the problem was he just wants to extend plays, guys. He's holding on a little bit more because he knows he's got the arm to bail it out when he's got to throw it in every single spot.
So you talk about dynamic playmakers. Let's talk about a dynamic playmaker on the defensive side of the ball, okay? Because this young man, when you look at Vincent Anthony Jr., a lot of people would say he's tied his career high in sacks already. And, he's had a 3-sack game this year already. Must have been against Elon. Had to have been against Elon. Not so fast, my friends. That came against Brett Bielema's Illinois Fighting Illini, which we all know that's one of the better offensive lines in the country. You're looking at a situation where you all stopped the run effectively, but that young man had himself a day. What do you think has allowed Vincent Anthony Jr. to kind of step up and be this player that, I mean, with all due respect, he was a good pass rusher last year. He was pretty good. This is a whole nother level in terms of the output that we're seeing this year. What's allowed him to do that?
I think you would know better than me, Kenton, having played defense in the ACC, but scheme has a lot to do with it. Manny Diaz and defensive coordinator Jonathan Packey the last 3 seasons, whether they've been at Duke together or when Packey was at Texas State and Manny Diaz was the defensive coordinator at Penn State, those two guys, their defenses have been in the top 5 every single season in tackles for loss and sacks. I mean, this is what they do. And so then they just look for that next guy that's going to step up and do that. And VJ Anthony has been that guy for the Duke defense to watch him get after the quarterback, make those plays in the backfield. It's set up Duke to have a lot of success. I mean, that's why you look at the final score, and I would caution NC State fans to see a 45-19 margin in Duke's game against Illinois, thinking that it wasn't a ball game at all. That's not the case whatsoever. I mean, in that first half and really in the early third quarter, the Duke defense was giving Illinois all they wanted and more. It's just the offense kept turning the football over. There kept being fumbles. And Illinois was able to work with those short fields and start to put points up on the board. But what he's been able to do getting after the quarterback has been so impressive. The problem last week, Kenton, and talking defense once again, for whatever reason, VJ Anthony, Wesley Williams, Aaron Hall, all those guys on the defensive front, they lost contained, man. And Jake Retzloff loved every single second of it, being able to run for over 100 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns for a quarterback, man. You can't lose contain. I didn't play defense in the ACC, KG, but I know I've heard you guys talk long enough. You cannot lose contain, man.
Yeah, it's all about discipline, especially against those read options, that was the interesting thing to me about it, was it wasn't like Retzlaff was doing his best Lamar Jackson impression and just like he had one scramble that was a great one for a touchdown, but the other 3, those are zone reads. You, as a defender, you got to know, all right, I've got to be where I am because we got 10 other guys taking care of the running back. If I'm the one guy for the quarterback, I've got to be the one guy for the quarterback, which was uncharacteristic of a Manny Diaz coach defense, which makes me look at CJ Bailey and say, hey, listen, you got Hollywood, you got Duke, hand that ball off, okay? Put a little pressure on that gut. Let them know, take it.
This has actually been unintended that all my questions are around offense and Kenton's are around defense, but we're going to stick on that. Talk to you about this running back room for Duke, JJ. I know that Jaquez Moore's been there for quite some time, but I also see Nate Shepherd had essentially a breakout game down in New Orleans this past week, nearly 100 total yards and a touchdown. What's been the dynamic between Shepherd and Moore?
Yeah, I think you would also throw Peyton Jones into the equation as well. I mean, there have been a couple of different guys out there in the backfield for Duke. What's been interesting, Grayson, is that Duke just hasn't had much success running the football this season. Anderson Castle is another name we could throw in there, an App State transfer who against Elon had Duke's longest rushing play this season of 63 yards. But you take out a 32-yard touchdown run that Jaquez Moore had. There really haven't been pop, dynamic, explosive plays. And now that it's been a few games into the season, I know a lot of the Duke everydayers are starting to point out to me, and it's been something that I've been hearing inside that building a little bit as well. hey, you went out and you paid a lot of money for the quarterback. You got to utilize that arm talent a little bit. And unfortunately, it's costing Duke an opportunity to establish a little bit of the ground game as well. I'm really curious if that turns the corner at all going into a game like this against NC State and going into ACC play, because looking at last season, it's a lot of the same names in the backfield for Duke. And this was a Duke team that, with Malik Murphy at quarterback, still finished second to last in the entire conference in running the football. That has to improve for Duke.
So, JJ, one last question. And like Grayson said, we're sticking on code here, okay? We're sticking to the theme of what this thing should be. But Duke's run defense, right? You look at it, and against Retzlaff, there was a letdown there. However, against Illinois, one of the most potent run games in the nation, a team that every game that they have had in, I believe, the last 6 or 7, outside of the game against Duke, they've had a 100-yard rusher. You all effectively shut down big old fake at 250 pounds, 6'3" back, held him to 48 yards. Is that what you're expecting of this defense, or is it more of a you kind of got to wait and see, you don't know who this defense is based on some of the earlier performances where it looked like Elon was moving the ball a little bit and it looked like, you were having problems stopping the run against Tulane? Which do you expect? Do you expect that to be the exception or the rule in terms of the ability to stop the run?
I would hope that I would hope that this Duke team's going to get it into gear and start to be able to stop the run, because on the defensive side of the ball, particularly up front, it's so many names that we've been used to seeing over the last couple of years. It's not like you're having to teach these guys anything brand new. Second year in a system with Manny Diaz and Jonathan Packey. They had so much success last year, like I said, finishing top 2 in the country in tackles for loss, in sacks, and getting after the court. You weren't able to do that against this front. I'd like to think it's still in there. Unfortunately, though, as you're pointing out, when you look at just the 2025 sample size, it hasn't been there. And that's certainly a concern. Hopefully it turns around this weekend.
All right. Well, coming up next, we're going to switch chairs. JJ will be posing us the NC State questions. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our first Friday crossover sponsor is Mazda. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. It's for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Our second Friday crossover sponsor is Wayfair. The weather's cooling down, days are getting shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home even cozier. When it comes to cozifying, that's a word for you, your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, or even an espresso machine that you can make your favorite latte right at home. It's the perfect time to set up your home for fall so you can enjoy cozy nights in with your friends and family. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated collection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and that autumn decor, you'll find it all the way for less at Wayfair.com. That's Wayfair, Wayfair, Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style for every home.
And welcome back into this Locked On crossover. It's Locked On Blue Devils and Locked On Wolfpack. I'm JJ Jackson. From the Duke side of things, we've got Grayson, Boone, and Kenton Gibbs from the NC State side of things. Duke on the year, a 1-2 record. NC State yet to be defeated. 3 wins, 0 losses on their total so far this season. Fellas, let's look at NC State through these first 3 games. Grayson, if you were to kind of summarize the offensive output through 12 quarters of Wolfpack football, what would that look like?
It's been electric. And to be quite honest with you, this is the offense in 25 that we thought we might have in 24. Of course, a quarterback goes down. That was Grayson McCall last year. You throw a true freshman basically into the fire and ask him to learn everything on the fly. You're going to take your lumps. But this year, CJ Bailey looks so much grown, not just physically, but mentally, able to read the field, make the correct throw at the correct time. His command of the offense has been very impressive up to this point. Our running back, Hollywood Smothers, we knew last year that he should have been RB1. Now he is this year, and he looks the part. Dynamic runner. I believe he actually leads the ACC in rushing yards right now. I think he's like top 10 in possibly the country even. So He's an electric athlete. Every time he touches the ball, it could go for 6. And the pass catchers, you have Justin Jolie at tight end. In our opinion over here in Raleigh, we think that he might be the best tight end, not just in the ACC, but one of the best in the country. And the wide receiving group, they've taken a pretty sizable step forward from last year as well. It seems like any given night, it could be any one of them that will lead the way in terms of receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. So the offense has kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. New offensive coordinator Kurt Roper, not exactly new to us, but he was the quarterback coach last year, got promoted to OC. Things right now, they're clicking on all cylinders for the offense.
All right, so NC State wins this year already over East Carolina, Virginia, and Wake Forest. Kenton, I come to you now, and I want to hear for Duke fans out there, let's talk defense. 12 quarters, 3 games worth for NC State. How do you summarize it?
We don't got to talk about 12 quarters. We can just talk about 6. We can just talk about 6 quarters. Let me tell you why I say that. This NC State defense has been the perfect example of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You don't know which version of this defense you're going to get from half to half. What I can tell you is the way that they start a half will give you a very good indication of which version you're going to see. What do I mean by that? In almost every game that we've had this year, the second half has been better than the first. The ECU game was the only exception. But even in that game, the first half, lights out, ECU could not piss a drop until we got players running off the field, some guys coming on the field, they snap the ball and catch us with our pants down, for lack of a better term, and they get a quick, easy 7 points instead of us calling the time out there for whatever reason, right? And then the second half is where you run into some struggles there. But even the struggles that you ran into, they scored 10 points. And then you go to game 2 against UVA. First half, UVA ran right. Whatever they wanted, they got it. Whatever they wanted, they got it in the first half. I believe they put up 24 in the first half. And then second half, 7. And so Wake Forest, you look at a very similar thing. You say, man, this defense needs to start fast against Wake Forest. JJ, what do you think happened on the opening kickoff of that game?
I recall last week, not good things.
Yeah, Barnes. He's taking it all away. You know, the hay wasn't in the barn, but the hay was in Barnes' hand as he was taking it to the end zone. So this is a defense, and they went from there to struggle to get stops in that first quarter as well, but they pitched a shutout in the second half. So each of these games, it's a tale of 2 cities. It's the best of times. It's the worst of times, all in one, which is so frustrating and confusing about this defense. But also, it's a little exciting because we came in knowing there was a mass exodus of your defensive backs. The linebacker room was not going to have much depth, which we haven't seen thus far. And on the defensive line, I mean, our edge rushers, Kean Sloan and Sebastian Harsh, have been a beautiful surprise. So all in all, I would say it's been some up, it's been down, it's been all around, but that's what we expected, or just about what you should have expected from this defense.
I like that. So Kenton, talking about this Duke defense then, and thinking about NC State offensively, we were just talking about that VJ Anthony, Wesley Williams on the end for Duke and what they've been able to do over the past couple of seasons, really getting after a quarterback. Offensively, what is NC State going to try to do to exploit Duke and find a way to put some points on the board?
The recipe was given to you. This is a team, with all due respect to Duke, they have 2 losses. The recipe is there. The recipe is stay ahead of the sticks. If you look at those touchdowns that Retzlaff was scoring, those were not on 3rd and 10. Why? Why is that important? When you stay ahead of the sticks, you then put defenses in a reactive state. They have to figure out what's going on. If you let your team get to a bunch of 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs against Manny Diaz, good luck to you. Good luck to you. More power to you. You're going to have to go down to Duke Chapel and say some prayers because it ain't going to be a good day. It ain't going to be a good day. But what happens in this game, if NC State is to win, you have to establish Hollywood. You have to establish Duke, and vice versa. If Duke wants to win this game, you have to make the running game a non-factor, because if NC State can stay ahead of the chains like they have for most of the season, that's what's made this offense so great. Yes, our receivers have been fantastic. Wesley Grimes has been as good as advertised, if not better. Noah Rogers has been that. Justin Jolie in the red zone, and his blocking this year has taken a massive step forward. There have been many good parts. And, of course, one of the leading rusher in the ACC, one of the leading rushers in the nation, Hollywood Smothers. But all of that comes from the running game setting it sets the table for everybody to eat. If you can take away the running game, now everybody got to eat with their hands, which look a little uncivilized if you ask me.
So, Grayson, we just heard the defensive breakdown a moment ago from Kenton talking about 6 quarters as opposed to the 12. I mentioned Darian Mensah, his ability. Look, he's going to spread the rock. He will make sure all of his playmakers are involved in this. That's a tough task for an NC State secondary. Who are going to be the guys in that secondary for NC State to hold their own?
Boy, I tell you, JJ, your guess might be as good as mine. I think the NC State secondary has definitely been the weak point up to this. I mean, it's only been 3 games, but kind of piggybacking off of what Kenton already told you, it's been every bit of a roller coaster. You don't know what you're going to get out of each half. And the pass defense, like I said, it's just been so hot and cold. I saw Chandler Moore pick us apart in the first half of that UVA game. I mean, he did essentially what he wanted in the second half. It just didn't result in points. But, you know, giving up well over 300 yards to Caton Hauser, ECU's quarterback in game 1. Robbie Ashford, the quarterback for Wake Forest, with all due respect, he's not going to win the Heisman, but we looked like he might have won the Heisman that first half out in Winston-Salem. Darian Mensah poses, by far the biggest credible threat against our secondary, again, up to this point of the season. I'm expecting Mensah to spread the field. I might be expecting Mensah to throw for like 350 plus based on what I've seen so far. Our secondary, it just seems like we've been playing a little bit soft. We've been kind of conceding the underneath routes to avoid getting burned over the top. Like we said already, Mensah can make every single throw on the field. He will not be afraid to bomb it deep or take what he's given underneath as well. So the NC State secondary, they might just be like the most pivotal group in this game. I'm dead serious.
Well, go ahead.
Just one quick thing about the secondary and all that before we move forward here. I bet if somebody was to say, who do you think has more interceptions on the year, NC State's defensive line or their defensive backs, you would get that answer wrong because you, exactly, like most people, would assume the defensive backs are making it happen. Instead, we've got Kean Sloan with a game winner against UVA in the end zone, and you've got Isaiah Shirley with the thick 6 against Wake Forest to swing momentum. So, we've only got 1 interception out of our secondary, which was from Ronnie Royal. And all in all, the secondary, the level of play has to step up, especially in a moment like this where you do have, I would argue, very clearly the best quarterback that you've faced all year coming to town.
All right, so the Duke offense wants to put points on the board, and they certainly can by finding the end zone. If points, however, are left up to the feet of kickers in this season so far, Duke fans absolutely adore Todd Polino and what he's been able to do throughout his career. But as we saw this past weekend, he goes just 2 for 4 on field goal attempts and had his struggles throughout the course of his career. If this turns into a kicking game and there's late pressure situations, Kenton, how are the Wolfpack feeling, I guess, not only in kicking, but special teams as a whole as well?
Break out the rosaries. Like I said, I talked about Duke Chapel earlier, but, get in your Bible, get in your prayer closet as the Saints were, all 3 of us are located in the Southeast, in the Bible Belt. So that's what we're going to need. When you talk about the feat of these guys determining the game, that's more problematic than it should be for NC State. When you're returning a punter like Caden Noonkester, and when you're returning a guy that you thought he wasn't the surest thing in the world, but he seemed steady, and Kanoa Vincent, all of a sudden this year, we're starting a kid who was like 4 for 10 in high school with a long of 30 and made the ECU game a lot closer than it had to be. And then you talk about our kick coverage in general. We've had a kickoff in every game that we've played against a Power 4 team. We've had some type of return that put the opposite team in the plus 40 or better. Obviously, the opening touchdown last game against UVA, we let the return man of the week, the ACC return man of the week, we kicked it right to him and said, let's see how this works out for us. Let's see if this will be good for us. And he ends up taking it back to the opposite 40. So the kick coverage has been worrisome for NC State. The kicking game overall, I mean, Vincent has looked good. I don't think Vincent's missed one all year if I'm correct there, but for some reason, there was another kid starting, which gives me and Grayson pause as to what was he doing. It must be something we can't even talk about on air for him to not be starting. But in all seriousness, it's just if it comes down to the kicking game, I like Kanoa Vincent. I don't have any worries about him. It seems like the coaching staff may, which is more problematic to me.
Well, Queso Brown has had a punt return touchdown for Duke football this season. He's also muffed a punt or two. So we'll see kind of what that looks like for the Duke team moving forward in this one. All right, we're going to go and take our final break here on the show. And then when we come back, we'll take an opportunity to set up the final storylines and things that you need to know ahead of this Duke and NC State football game on this Locked On College crossover. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or that corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, there are places that bring people together. And when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. It's all because of Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be so happy you did. As we're out and about going around the community, we see Square devices at checkout everywhere. Make this a part of your day as well. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Our show today also brought to you by DoorDash. That's right. It's almost the weekend. Time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it all down. For Duke and NC State fans lately this season, it has been quarterbacks, Darian Mensah and CJ Bailey, who have been delivering. When the pressure is on, they're coming through. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you would know their performance, that they're on a streak. And just like Mensah and Bailey have been delivering for Duke and NC State, DoorDash delivers for you on your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through 11/18. DoorDash is a proud sponsor of this Locked On crossover.
Last couple minutes of our Friday Locked On crossover episode. NC State will be traveling out to Durham to face the Duke Blue Devils. As you see here on the screen, Duke is a 3.5-point favorite. The over-under is set for 58.5. Boys, before we get into our final thoughts here, JJ, let me hear an X factor for if Duke wins, it will be because of who?
This is such a fun question. I hate to, Darian Mensah feels like the obvious choice at quarterback, but I want to shout out one of his playmakers that he's had so far this season. You look at what Samir Hagans has been able to do for the Duke team against this last week against Tulane. Hagans walked away with just one catch, but it was a touchdown grab for the Duke offense. He's been featured a whole lot more recently. There have been games where Quayshawn Brown, Queso is his nickname, which is awesome. He's been the go-to guy for Mensah. A couple of games where it's been Andrew Anthony, a couple of moments where it's been Samir Hagans. I feel like this is a Samir Hagans type game for Duke. So he's the X factor I'm going for. What about you guys? Who's the X factor for NC State?
Well, I mean, it's very cliche, but it's got to be Hollywood, okay? By the way, we want to have the RDU Rumble have an official title and a trophy of like a plane taking off from RDU Airport.
I think that's a great idea.
I think it'd be a great idea.
That's a great idea.
What would be a great idea for NC State to win this game? Stay ahead of the chains. Stay ahead of the sticks. And that's going to start and finish with this offensive line and their ability to move the ball effectively on first and second down. If you can do that, you can keep Manny Diaz from getting in his master disguise bag. You can keep Manny Diaz from getting into all those little things that mess with the quarterback's head and that makes that secondary look so good. And you can make them have to play you straight up and honest. And that will be the ultimate decider of this game for me. If Hollywood does not have a good game, it's going to be a very uphill battle for NC State to win this one.
Maybe cliche for me as well, but I think I have to go with NC State quarterback CJ Bailey. If you rewind about a year ago, the Duke game in Raleigh was probably CJ Bailey's worst game of that 2024 season. The pressure that Duke was able to provide in the backfield, just a true freshman at that time, everything had to be moving at like 1,000,000 miles an hour, and it looked like that. Of course, Duke left with a 29-19 win. So for CJ, there's an opportunity for some get back here against Manny Diaz and those Duke Blue Devils. We're looking for CJ to continue his growth progression because so far, although it is only 3 games, he looks like a completely different quarterback. The comfortability factor is very real so far this season. So I'm looking for CJ to command this offense and figure out how to put more points on the board than the other team, defense notwithstanding. Now, final thoughts and our score predictions here. JJ, I'll let you go first. Give us your score prediction, 4 p.m. in Durham.
I'm excited to see this one. It's a fun game always. I love the RDU Rumble that you guys are calling it. We got to get a trophy in this thing as well. Duke's had NC State's number over the last couple of seasons. I hope that remains the same here. I just don't know how this Duke team, if they fall to 1-3 on the year, I would be worried that the energy of that building would just take too far of a fallback to really build momentum going into the rest of the season. I like Duke to come out victorious in this one. I really like the offense to put on a big-time display for this Duke football team. I think this game has the makings of a 38-31 type battle with Duke coming out on top.
It's very interesting that JJ asked me about the kickers, and now I've got to say that I think Von said is going to be the difference in this game. I really and truly do. Not only from the standpoint of the fact that I was expecting him to be the guy and expecting him to hit some pretty good game winners this year, but I think he'll hit one in this one. I think that we're going to go in the under in this one. I think that this is going to be a situation where this has the makings and the feeling of NC State's defense is going to have that. This is going to be their best game of the season. They're finally going to have everything click and work together, and it'll do a good job of slowing down Duke, but not necessarily stopping them. And I think NC State comes away with a close win here, 27-24. I think that this is going to be one that it's one of those that just it feels kind of wonky, and we look back at the stats and we say, wait a minute, Duke had more positive plays than NC State, but just a couple turnovers here or there or a big return for NC State for a change is the difference in this one. 27-24 NC State, and we get the inaugural RDU Rumble trophy. We get the inaugural airplane flying out of RDU Airport.
Are we spray painting this thing every year, Kenton, or what does this look like?
I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking, how do you express who won it for the year? and you know what? You with the spray painting idea, I think that's the idea. I think that's the winner. The winner gets to spray paint it for a year. I like it.
Trophy makers in the Raleigh-Durham area, please hit our line. Now, yes. Kenton and myself, we shared our final thoughts on our Thursday show, and I have not been able to shake any of the massive concerns that I have for NC State in this game. I think this is a real spot that will outline Duke's urgency to come back from a 1-2 start to the season. I think they're very obviously a team that's going to be pissed off in this game, losing 2 games that they felt like they had a real shot in. NC State's defense, for me, they have not proven enough of themselves so far. And I know they had a great second half in Winston-Salem. I know they ultimately got the win against UVA and against ECU. But this Duke offense is a different beast to be dealing with. And so I fear that the defense will give up a little bit too much that the NC State offense will not be able to claw back from. However, I think this will be an extremely close game for all 4 quarters. I have a Duke win. I have a 30-27 Duke win. I know you mentioned Todd Polino. He might just hit a game winner in this one, but I have Duke 30-27. As much as it pains me to say it, until I see Dave Doran beat Duke, I'm going to have to keep picking this way. It's unfortunate.
I can't wait. This is going to be a super fun game, and I think we're set up for a good one, guys. Folks can tune in 4 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2. You're definitely going to get your money's worth watching this game.
Duke's had Dave's number in the past few years, but guess what? Hollywood Smothers came out with a song called Block the Call, and that's what I think is going to happen in this one. We're going to be bumping that Sosa Vandross all night because I think that Hollywood and company are going to have a pretty good game offensively that's going to end up with NC State on top.
Always a pleasure with our guy, JJ Jackson of Locked On Blue Devils. Be sure to like and subscribe over on his channel as well. That will do it for our Friday crossover episode. 4 p.m. in Durham, NC State at Duke. Should be a great game. Thanks, y'all, for stopping by.